Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome out to tonight's investing webinar. We're going to talk about tax liens and deeds. My name is Shade Foray, of course, and I'm sitting here next to Stephen Swenson.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to welcome you out to tonight's webinar.
Yeah, now these webinars that we do are some free webinars that we conduct every so often. It seems like we try to do them every 6 weeks or so. We've done them on Saturdays before, and we've started trying these on different weeknights because we think that some people that works better. And so wherever you have found us from, we're just happy to have you join us.
Yeah, absolutely. We also record these trainings as well, and we'll put them out on our YouTube channel after we're done. And you can actually find a lot of different trainings there that we have available on our YouTube.
Yeah, we have been placing training on YouTube for a long time. There are a lot of different things that are on there. Specifically what we're going to talk about tonight, though, is going to be, we're going to be talking about tax deed land, or specifically vacant land or raw land, and some of the opportunities that revolve around investing in just straight land.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of opportunity when we talk about acquiring property through tax deeds. And tonight we want to talk about what are the advantages of starting out with land, especially if you haven't done tax sale investing. There's certain reasons why Shade and I, when we're working with our coaching students, will usually start out, most students, with land as their first investment.
Yeah, and by the way, hopefully our audio is working out okay here. Mary was saying that the microphone sounded weird, but if you could do us a favor, Heidi, it's good to see Heidi here. Yeah, it's been a long time. For any of you guys, if we sound okay or if it does sound messed up, let us know so that we can fix it before we move forward. We don't want to continue doing the whole webinar with bad audio. Okay, good deal. So it's fixed. Perfect. Excellent. Yes, and we will. We will get you an invitation there to. So the next workshop that we're doing is going to end up being in Anaheim.
Yeah, exactly. So a little bit about us, and then we'll get right into the training because we got a ton of information to go over today. We first started attending tax sales. Well, I first attended my first tax sale back in 1999. I was a real estate agent, new agent. My broker invited me to attend the local tax sale, kind of explained the process to me as we drove over. And then once I saw that opportunity, me and Shade are cousins and have grown up around each other our whole lives. He was always interested in real estate. We both were. And that was part of the reason got him as an agent, became a real estate agent. Well, I just talked to him and we both started just learning or trying to learn everything we could about it.
Yeah, I think the process that we went through is similar to what I'm sure a lot of you have been through, at least if you're trying to learn more about something, and seeking out information from any source you can. I mean, we were looking at, it was any kind of book that we could get our hands on, any kind of training. And if anything, the more that we read, the more confused we became because, none of it really seemed to make sense. And the internet was beginning to change how everything was done anyway. And so it really wasn't until we started just attending auctions and started trying to buy things and figure things out on a state-by-state basis that it started to make more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we did that for probably 7 or 8 years, and finally we started to get a pretty good handle on how tax sale investing worked. Through that time, we'd worked as coaches for tax sale investors and personal coaches and things like that. But finally, around 2007 or so, before that, but eventually in 2007, we put out our home study program. And we started working with a lot of the large seminar companies, and we were essentially the behind the scenes guys. We would private label our books and trainings and CDs for different seminar companies and provide their tax sale training for them.
Yeah, which we did that for a while. It was a great way to it was a great way to, I think, reach a lot of people, but it didn't give us much control over things like pricing and over a lot of things. We decided we wanted to go out and do it on our own, which is when we started tax sale support. We basically took what was our home study program that the seminars would, sell for big money, and just made it available online, and so you could download it, and made it part of the monthly membership program. And really ever since then, that has just been growing and building, and we've got a lot of people involved in the membership now, and we've seen some incredible success stories come out of it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of where we are up to this point. We've been providing our membership programs. We took that program, the seminar companies would sell for $2,000 to $3,000 in books and tape form, and essentially just put it online for a monthly membership. And that's really where where we've been able to create all these success stories throughout the last few years.
Yeah. And to Thomas, well, I guess in terms of, we don't talk much about due diligence. I guess it depends on what you're basing it on, because we talk about due diligence quite a bit.
Yeah, we actually have quite a few videos on YouTube about that. Plus, it's really something that we do on a monthly basis.
Well, it's also more reserved, yeah, with members, and that's really what the coaching and stuff like that is all about. But you're right, though. Just because you can get a property for free doesn't mean that you want it. Not every deal out there. In fact, part of what we do when we're going after vacant land is about deciphering, and separating the land that's junk from the land that we, think has use and value and that we can sell.
Yeah.
And, because certainly there's lots of property that can end up, in a tax sale, and a lot of it may be totally undesirable. But the thing is that among the undesirable stuff, you're going to find properties that are good, and you can get those for very low prices.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, as part of our membership program, we do a weekly webinar each week where me and Shade tackle different topics, and each week we go over one of our success stories. We have a ton of different students, and whether that be through our membership program or coaching program, that are having incredible success. And so we wanted to kind of give you guys an idea of one student that we started working with about maybe 18 months ago or so.
Yeah.
Vance, and he sent this in. I just wanted to give you guys a shout out since it's been a while. Last year, I purchased and sold over 30 properties, 80% of them being land sales. I currently have 5 mobile homes, including the land that I'm currently renovating in order to sell or finance and receive passive income. And I have a distressed house outside Pittsburgh that I'm about to list for sale as is. I'm killing it in the OTC niche, and have you guys to thank for the success, Vance.
Yeah, which, Vance is a great story, I think, because he didn't start out big. He started out doing smaller purchases and has kind of gradually worked his way up in deals, but he stayed busy all the time. And really, that's a lot of deals to do. It's a lot of properties to acquire over the course of a year, and to already be selling them and to have income coming in from them. I think he's done awesome.
Yeah, incredibly well. And so we want to give him a shout out and congratulate him, and in fact, he was talking about, I didn't have it on this one because it was kind of a long, I just wanted to put part of it there, but he talked about how he's going to plan on having even a better year this year.
Yeah, which it's absolutely possible to do. In fact, that was one of the things that kind of happened after we started Tax Sale Support, was just a lot of people started hitting us up for more help, and what was fun about doing that, though, was looking at different ways to help people be successful that are starting out from, in some cases starting out with very little capital.
Yeah.
That was kind of a fun driving point. But tonight we're going to talk about getting started with tax deed land, and some of the benefits that are revolve around this. It works well in a lot of ways when you're looking to get started. Certainly has benefits and drawbacks as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But there's definitely a lot of opportunity. And so the question we get a lot, especially as we're talking with our different membership students and coaching students, is why do you recommend you start with tax deed land for my first investment?
Yeah, which, this is a question that we get a lot of times, and there are really a lot of reasons, for this. And first off, most of the investors that we work with are out-of-state investors, and so if you're going to buy structures or some kind of improved upon property, really rehabbing a property all by itself is its own skill. Knowing the process that's involved and understanding how to do it, it is something that takes time,
Working
to learn
with
and evolve.
contractors, getting the best prices, negotiating, knowing what you need. Figuring all that out is just like Shade said, almost a whole nother side of real estate. And so for us, we want to help those students go through a land transaction. That way they've gone through the process, the buying process, have success, and understand how the tax sale process works before getting involved in the whole rehab side of it.
Yeah, well, realistically, tax sale investing is such a good opportunity that I think you almost have to kind of go through it before you can totally believe it and understand it, and kind of see how it works. And really, the last thing I think that we would want to do with a person, let's say a person has $10,000 that they can invest with, the last thing we would want to do with them is go out and find a $10,000 property, or something that we thought, was about that price. And there are a lot of reasons for that. But one of them is that, when you're going into this new, it makes it harder to learn when you're sinking a lot of money into the first investment. And because first off, you've got to make that investment work, of course, but you've also tied up all your capital and your ability to do anything else. So in so many different ways, smaller investments, work really well. They can also be highly profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything can be done online. And that's part of the reason why we teach our students and our investors, how to be able to get started with this, is because you can do this regardless of your location. You can live in Hawaii and buy property in Florida, or live in Florida and buy property in Arkansas. It doesn't matter where you are, as long as you have basic internet connection, and a phone, you can really do most everything you need to do without ever leaving your home.
Yeah, focusing on land will simplify the due diligence process here in the beginning, especially for you as an out-of-state investor. That's not to say that you couldn't at some point decide to switch over and look at structures, or buy improved property like homes. You could certainly do that at any point, but it's easier to do once you understand the investment process and how to make money with it first.
Yeah, well, and another advantage to land is it's going to be cheaper than competing against structures. There's usually less bidders bidding on land. So if you have a $100,000 home and a $100,000 piece of land, there's going to be more competition on that person bidding on the home than the land. Yet with the home, you still need to put money into it. In fact, maybe next month for our next online workshop that we do like this, maybe we'll go over structures and some of the things that are involved with that.
Yeah. Different states are, do have varying degrees of complication here. But, throughout the country, though, that was something else that we realized, was that there were many counties across the country that have had property that need to get that property unloaded, that need to sell it. But they really haven't had a very good way of doing that. And for the counties, it doesn't make sense to sit on the property because they can't collect property taxes on it. The internet is now making it possible for them to be able to unload properties like they could never do before.
Yeah. So as far as improved deeds or structures, usually improved deeds account for 30% of the available tax deeds, sometimes less, sometimes a little more, but there's more land on most tax sale lists than there is any type of structured properties.
Yeah, which, there are lots of reasons for that. Nobody wants to lose, their property to foreclosure with the county. And generally, if, the more valuable a property is, the more likely it is that it'll get paid off. Somebody will step in and pay it off. But when you're dealing with land, it's more likely that it's going to be owned outright, that it might be owned by a single individual. It might have a limited number of owners that are involved. And so it's easier for it to be foreclosed on. And, it's also something that people are more likely to let go.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. There's not things like bank loans and, things like that may keep it from going through foreclosure.
Yeah. The other thing that's a big part of it is, especially with tax sales, is the condition of the improvements is an unknown without a visual inspection. You know, you do have to have some kind of boots on the ground in order, if you're, you know, in order to buy any kind of structured property, you've got to have somebody there, or you've got to be there, you know, yourself. But you have to be able to evaluate condition there at the time of the sale.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we got to account for is these properties were lost because of delinquent property taxes, which means that, you know, some of these properties are just going to be straight junk, you know, condemned. You know, you could go online and maybe the property looks good from 2017, but you go take a 2020 photo and the property doesn't look anything like that. And so, you know, it's real important, like Shade said, that we do those evaluations.
Yeah, it's the only way that you can really buy structured or improved property. But again, that's one of the reasons why we like to focus on land, is because when you're getting started and you know, you are looking for different investments, you can find different opportunities with land. Now, not all of it is going to be something you want to buy. So part of what we do in the beginning is about learning how to distinguish between the property that has value and use versus the property that doesn't.
Yeah.
You know, but there are lots of different other reasons. You know, when it comes to land, it's easier to buy and sell land. You know, especially when we're doing it. You know, we can wholesale land as is, or if it's valuable enough, then we can take it through quiet title. You know, to get an insurable deed. You know, to get a warranty deed on it. You know, we've got options with land, and it's generally going to be quite a bit cheaper.
Yeah, definitely. Tax deed land is really the cheapest way you can buy real estate. You know, we've looked for any other option that's cheaper, and there just really isn't a better opportunity when it comes to land investing than looking at buying tax sale properties.
Yeah. You know, which, you know, by the way, we'll stop here in about 10 minutes and try to go over some different questions here so that we can try to get through content and still answer questions for everybody. So yeah, when we're dealing with land, what we're able to do is we're able to simplify the investment in a lot of ways, okay, which is nice because it allows us to focus more on different aspects of the due diligence process without needing to focus on all the things related to rehabbing a property.
Yeah, exactly. With land, we automatically eliminate the age, the condition, what the improvements are, what type of rehab costs are going to be needed. The only thing we need to worry about, does the land have value? And also, does it have a property use? Meaning it's used, you know, is it zoned for a building lot, and can you build on it? If it's commercial, you know, it just needs to have some type of use, whether that be farmland or even something like vacation land. It doesn't matter what it is. It just, one thing we want to avoid is, and we'll talk about it here later, is that junk land.
Yeah, junk land, you know, we definitely want to avoid, you know, in general. But yeah, mixed in though with all of that junk land out there are some great opportunities, and they are cheap. You know, you can find them, you know, for as low of a price as you can find.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when we're talking about buying land online, there's really two options. Now, you can always go to a live auction, and all of these strategies we talk about tonight are still going to be used at a live auction. But for this training, we want to talk about buying land online.
Yeah, so if you're going to buy it online, it's going to end up being either from an auction or it's going to be over the counter. And you know, the options and their availability kind of depend on state to state because they're not available just everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's generally going to be one of those two.
Yeah, with online auctions, there's a ton of opportunity out there for tax deed investing. You know, more counties are adding auction services with tax deed states and tax deed counties. So there's more opportunity than there ever has been before to purchase land in different areas just from the computer.
Yeah, which again, there are more auction companies popping up all the time. You know, what we're finding, you know, this particular slide here, you know, showing for Butte County, California, is with a company called Bid for Assets here. And there are other companies as well. Bid for Assets handles a lot of the online auctions for the counties in California that do online auctions, as well as some for Washington, and there's a few other states they handle it for. But what tends to happen though is some of these bigger providers here handle them or provide the auction websites and platforms for many, for several states.
Yeah, exactly. Real Auction and Grant Street Group both provide tax deed auctions for Florida. So if you're interested in Florida tax deeds, that's who you're going to look at. Grant Street Group also does some California as well.
Yeah, and between SRI Auctions and Civic Source, we've got a lot of different areas as well.
Yeah, there's probably a dozen different providers. We just kind of put some of the biggest ones there, the major providers. There's some states that just do it through the state provider. There's some national websites that sell all kinds of government things that sometimes they'll put the land on there. So there's a lot of different options out there when it comes to online auctions, but they're adding new services and companies are popping up all over that are providing this for counties.
Yeah, in fact, we saw some Texas counties go online.
Yeah,
this year,
in fact, Real Auction just added that as well.
Yeah, so it is growing. Now, if you don't buy it from the auction, the other option is to buy it over the counter. And what over the counter is any lien or deed really that was offered at an auction but didn't sell. So if it's offered at auction and doesn't sell, the county basically just has to put it back on their books. And in some cases they won't offer them to the public. They might just decide to do another auction down the road. But some counties will actually let the public buy them directly, from the county after that, and you just have to pay the back taxes.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of times these are going to be raw land, building lots, different things like that. There is, over-the-counter structures and homes like that out there. But one thing you got to think about is if the home didn't sell for the back taxes, which could be around 10% of the value at the auction, there may be issues with that home. So we really got to check into that availability. So there is going to be a lot of land. Now there's going to be junk in there as well, but there's also going to be great pieces of land that are going to be very profitable.
Yeah, in fact, what's kind of interesting is some of the land that we're digging into, we can see what the last time was that, we can see how long this property's been on the books, and we can see how long the county has essentially been sitting on it, or last time the property was evaluated. And some of these properties have been on the books for decades.
Yeah.
We see properties dating back to the 80s, that they've been on the books in some of these counties, because I just don't think they had a good system in place to really get rid of them. And so we're really kind of seeing, a lot of counties see this opportunity and begin to offer more property. It seems like there's more stuff over the counter available now than ever before.
Yeah, and when we're talking about over-the-counter deeds, we're talking about 100% ownership right. So this isn't a tax lien certificate or anything like that. They're going to be sending you a deed to the property. So you are at that point going to be the new owner. So really this is it's a form of real estate. It's just a buying method for real estate.
Yeah, it's simply a buying method that enables you to acquire the property for probably cheaper than any other buying method, because the county doesn't have a personal interest in how much it sells for. Outside of what the opening bid is, which is generally going to include all the delinquent taxes and fees owed. Outside of that, it does not matter to them how much it sells for. And therefore we can get properties for lower prices than we can with almost any other buying method, because there's almost always another party on the other side that trying to collect a certain amount out of it.
Yeah, with over-the-counter tax deed land, with most of our students that we're working with, we're looking at buying land anywhere between 5 to maybe 15%. Most counties, probably their over-the-counter land is going to be between 5 and 20%. But really, kind of 10% is that mark. 10% or less is what we're looking for when we're buying over-the-counter land. And so when you're buying land for that little, there's a huge amount of potential profitability on them.
Yeah, there is. And we're always attracted to any property we can acquire for those kinds of numbers. But with over-the-counter properties, there is that opportunity. There's even the opportunity in some cases to be able to get properties for almost, you could say it's like free in a way. When you pay as little as like, $100 or a couple $100 for a property, that's pretty much free in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
It's as close to free as you can get. And those opportunities are out there. But it's different everywhere you go. They call it different things. But at the end of the day, though, there are many different states that offer over-the-counter opportunities.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's important to realize. If you call up the counter and say, hey, do you have over the counter, they might not recognize that term. It may not be a term that's used, and so you'll want to check and see how they use it within that particular state. It could be, assignment purchasing or county owned or tax forfeited land or repository or struck offer. There's just all these different terminologies depending on the state on how they categorize those over the counter properties.
Yeah, there are many, and it is important to know which, exactly what terms it is that they use. Now, let's talk for a minute about some of the things about land that we're looking for. Some of the, when we start looking at properties, we're generally looking at properties trying to save as much time as we can. So we're looking at ways to disqualify the property as quickly as possible. If it's not going to work, we want to know it as soon as we can. So, some of the things that we're looking for are, number one, we're looking at the size, of the lot. And also kind of the shape and where it's located at. But we need to be able to see a map image of the property and know about where it is to see if it's usable or not.
Yeah, that's one thing that's going to be important is the size. We're really going to be, at least nervous or check out any property that is less than 1/10 an acre. In some areas, there may be buildable lots in that size, but we're really looking for, 1/4 acre or larger, depending, somewhere around there, 0.2 acre or so. And really, each one of those need to have use.
Yeah, that might seem small to some of you, but in lots of places, that is about the size that a person could put a single wide trailer on, and or possibly double wide. I don't know, but it is, that's actually something that a lot of people are looking for, is for property that they can that they can place their home on, so that they don't have to pay a rent. And it's something that you will find a lot of interested, potential buyers for it if you can look for properties like that. That's a good example of a property that has a definite use and, easy to sell.
Yeah, absolutely. We love picking up mobile home lots in areas that mobile homes are legal, because those are so easy to sell. You can find somebody who's interested, who has their mobile home or wants to buy a mobile home and put it on that lot. And if they can get in it for a discounted cost, it's just an easy transaction. So, that's where we're going to check to make sure, it's going to have the right size so that it does have use.
Yeah, but we definitely, it's not something we turn our nose up at all, because those are some of the easiest lots to sell.
What we want to avoid is what we call side lots, like a 10 by 100 foot section of land. That's not going to do anything. You can't do anything.
Well, one of the most important things you have to do when you're buying the land is you have to think about who you're going to potentially sell it to. And the problem with the side lot is that the only person that's really likely to buy that, or that it has any true purpose for, is going to be that one person. You're basically relying on one person, for, to be able to sell this property, and therefore it's just never a good idea. You want properties that are appealing to anybody.
They might have been the one that gave it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In fact, another big thing is establishing access. You need access from a public road.
Yeah, absolutely. The next thing is market value. Now, with market value, the historical or the assessed value is going to give us an idea, but we're never going to take that as what the actual property value is.
Yeah, as we start looking at the property, as we get overhead images of it, we're also going to be able to access the assessed value. Those records, fortunately, are oftentimes linked right to the sales list now, so we can click on it and immediately see county records telling us, what the property was worth, and if it had past sales. It can tell us quite a bit.
Yeah, in fact, some county records will actually show us properties that are similar that have sold within that area. But
comps basically.
Yeah, but that's one thing that we're going to do, is we're going to do a comparative market analysis before buying any piece of land. We're going to see what is the cheapest properties for sale within the area, within the county, and then we break that down even further.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in fact, what we're looking to try to find out is exactly what's for sale in the area. What is currently for sale, what is sold recently, and because that's what's going to give us the most accurate representation of what that property might be worth. Now, the next thing we check there is accessibility. With that overhead image, we need to make sure that the property can be accessed from a public road, and that that it's not landlocked.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the first things that we'll eliminate is if a property is landlocked, even if we can get it for cheap, the problem is that use factor.
Yeah, without any access to road, it just doesn't have any use.
Yeah, that's the reason we always go back to value and use. That property does have value. Maybe let's say it's a 5-acre parcel, but it's completely landlocked. Well, that 5-acre parcel could be used for farming or whatever, but if you can't get to it, then we're really limiting our access to it. Unless there's some type of easement that allows us to go through some other property to that property, even though it has value, because it doesn't have any use to us, and even if we could maybe sell it to the next property owner, we're only relying on that one property, and we're limiting ourselves, and we need to have property that we can sell to everyone.
Yeah, so that is a huge factor for us. Something else that we can tell, and sometimes by looking at a property, and sometimes it's almost easier to tell from maps than it is from like the deed paperwork in terms of finding easements.
Yeah.
Easements are something that we can look for and find. For instance, we're always looking at where drainage and how drainage works on a property, as well as we're looking at other things that might be there, like utility,
power
lines, anything.
It's larger property, roads. There could be a road. A lot of times you'll see there's kind of easements. There's good easements and bad easements, or there's easements that affect the property and easements that don't affect the property. An easement that doesn't affect the property is maybe you have a 10-acre parcel, and going through the back end of the parcel is a power line, and it goes through your property and everyone else's property. It's just part of the thing. That's an easement that doesn't really hurt the value. It's just part of the property. On the other hand, you could have an easement where all it is just a drainage ditch.
Yeah, the entire property is a drainage basin.
Yeah, drainage basin.
Or something like that.
And it could be deceiving. In fact, there's been properties that overhead look like it could be just a building lot, that then if you were to take a street view, like a Google Maps view, you could actually see, no, this is actually a drainage basin.
Yeah. So that's something that we're looking at as well. And easements, again, are something that won't necessarily, well, some easements, I suppose, could disqualify a property, but they're more like things that you're going to have to live with the property, and so you want to make sure that it's that the property has use and value, and that they don't affect the property's use and value.
Yeah. So the fourth thing is zoning. And zoning is really how the government controls, the use of the land as part of the planning, either the planning,
land use planning, and urban planning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they want to make sure that they are, they are planning out their communities, that they're not putting commercial or industrial in the middle of residential, and vice versa. They want to make sure that that they don't create problems for themselves. And so property zoning becomes an important factor, because it ultimately details exactly how the property can be used.
Yeah, it'll show us if it's if the property's improved, or if it's vacant land within the county records. And there's also going to be different zoning categories. Now, there's going to be more than just these four, but the four kind of most basic ones you're going to see as a tax sale investor is either going to be residential, commercial, agricultural, or industrial. Now, even within those categories, there can be different other types of zoning. Like in residential, there can be R1, R2, or different levels. So some of them may be just for single family homes. Some of them may have a close classification for mobile or single family home, or duplexes or anything like that. And so that's something that we're going to look into as well. Is this zoned? What is the zoning? And then in addition, can it be used for something else? So if it can be used for a duplex, that might increase the value of the property.
Yeah, one thing that we always look at is, we know that when it comes to land, we're always interested in residential land, but we also know that there is going to be automatically less available commercial and industrial land. So that doesn't mean that they're always good investments. But if we can find one of those properties, that have use and value, then we're certainly interested, because we know there's a more limited amount of it.
Yeah, there's less of it, and because there's less of it, and a lot of times that means that when there's less, that increases the value of it.
And how easy it will be to sell or to unload or get rid of
Yeah.
its overall value or desirability.
Well, something like commercial property or industrial property or something like that is probably going to be sold to a business or something like that. So people with maybe more capital.
Yeah. Okay. Now, you know what? Let me answer a couple questions here really quick, so that we don't pass up too many people here. And so one of the questions here, is how can I open a U.S. bank account from overseas without coming to the U.S.? So actually, one of the things that that I would suggest is, for at least for foreign investors, is there are different firms that specialize in helping foreign investors get set up here in the U.S. to invest, and they can help get a lot of the things out of the way.
Yeah, there's different agents. Essentially, what you need is an IT.
Oh, an ITIN?
Yeah.
You're talking about, well, so yeah, if you want to buy tax liens and deeds, the one requirement that that the county official or whoever it is you're buying it from is going to have is that you fill out and include either a social security number or a tax ID number, and so as a foreigner getting that, you can go through the process to obtain one of those, and then basically what you have to do from there is get your funding established there stateside.
Yeah, in fact, as part of our membership program, we actually have one of our books that is all about that, called the Foreign Investors Guide, and that'll go ahead and go over what's required as far as getting the right documents and kind of the process that you're going to go through.
Yeah, it looks like Thomas was talking about Florida is a pretty complex system. It sounds like he says start with over the counters and didn't buy a deed for 2 years. That's
not surprising. We've never bought any over the counter tax deed, over the counter in Florida, because really by that point, most good property are going to sell at the auction in Florida. There's enough competition that if a property comes up for 5 to 10 cents on the dollar and it has use and value, good chance it's going to sell at the auction. So because of that, really the only properties that do go to the over-the-counter list in Florida are going to be junk property. So if we wanted to buy property in Florida, we'd be looking at the auction. We wouldn't even look at the over-the-counter list.
Yeah, Florida is kind of a unique state in that way. And so normally there can be great over-the-counter opportunities, but with the way that Florida, with the way that they have their system, and ultimately Florida is a state that uses really two systems. They use a tax lien system and a tax deed system, so in Florida, the only way that the lien holder can really end up with the property is if it doesn't redeem and then it goes to the tax sale auction and doesn't get a bid, and that isn't usually good properties.
Yeah, well, and occasionally there'll be a property that's worth buying that may slip through, but it's usually going to be in the counties that don't have online auctions. Because if it's available to everyone in Florida, somebody's going to bid on it if it's at that opening bid amount. So really, when it comes to over the counter, that's kind of a state that we'll avoid when it comes to deeds, at least.
Yeah. Now another question here, is how can I find a property from the county assessor or county official? So that's actually one of the challenges is knowing exactly where to start looking with some of the counties. So when it comes to the tax sale, information, we're normally going to end up looking in, oftentimes the tax collector or the treasurer's office. It's the individual responsible for the collection of property taxes, because ultimately that's where enforcement's going to fall.
Yeah, our entire research process, or a big part of it, is going to be through the tax assessor records to find out the tax information, the property assessor to find out the property records, maps, sales information, and then whoever is the equivalent to the recorder's office. This is going to be the person that records all of the deeds, the liens, the mortgages, judgments, all of that kind of stuff. And so those are going to be the three departments where we do 90% of our research.
Yeah, which and also, the better you get at navigating those kinds of records, the more efficient you'll be with tax sale investing. It's so much of it is about your ability to go through a lot of records. Yeah, and also, Thomas actually has, a great suggestion too. And he's talking about, going to smaller counties and to shake hands and ask lots of questions. And really, we couldn't agree more.
That's all we did.
Yeah.
In fact, when we first got started, we'd attend auctions where we didn't have any business being at the auction because we didn't have enough money. Properties were bidding up to 50, 60,000, and we just didn't have that. We were 20, 22, 23 years old. And so, really we would bid on some of the smaller properties that would come through and stuff like that, but we were just there to learn, shake hands, figure out how it worked. And that's really how we learned how tax sale investing works.
Yeah. In fact, and working with some of the smaller counties is a great idea because you learn a lot. You learn a lot, and it's not necessarily so busy or big, that you feel out of place. In fact, a lot of times counties can be some of the best resources that you have, if you can establish a good relationship with county officials. And so, that is really a great point, and we couldn't agree more. Attending auctions, even if you can't buy, is going to be something that you're going to learn from a lot. Oh, now another question here is a great question here. It's kind of about liens, and what they're asking here about liens here. Let me is if the property has multiple older liens for previous years, like 2015, 16, 17, you recommend buying such a property, or bidding on the tax lien, for such a property. Which that's a really good question. How do we treat previous liens when we're looking at buying a lien?
Yeah, really, we're going to always look into those other liens, and we're going to determine what the total cost is going to be. That's what we call the roll up, is any other tax liens on a property. So let's say that you buy a tax lien from 2000, maybe it's an over-the-counter one from 2018, but in addition to that 2018, there's a 2019, a 2020, a 2017, 16. We're going to figure out how much is that total amount. And let's say it's a $100,000 home, and those 6 tax liens or 5 tax liens or however many they are, let's say it's in Florida where they have they can go for 7 years if they wanted. So there could be 5. Let's say there's 5 tax liens on it, and that ends up being $20,000. Well, if the property's nice, that we're getting it for 20 cents on the dollar, it could be worth buying all the liens and doing the foreclosure.
Yeah, especially somewhere like Florida where you've got more competitive bidding. And properties are going to bid up, to 50% of value or more. Definitely in a case like that, then we're going to, now, if we're looking to buy liens normally, though, one of the things we're always looking at is, what the total roll-up is on the property, and beyond that, we're also looking at, with a property like that, why didn't the previous property lien holders start the foreclosure process? We would look and probably be just a little bit more cautious with it, but it wouldn't necessarily disqualify an investment because that would ultimately come down to the total numbers. So when we love buying first-year liens, but we're always going to check the roll-up to see how much total it's going to take to foreclose on a property before we buy a lien.
Yeah, really, that's what a tax deed is. It's all of those years worth of delinquent taxes that come up to that opening bid. And so that's usually why the opening bid is going to be around 5 to 10% of the property's value, is because there's probably going to be around 3 to 5 years worth of property taxes that are going to come around to around 5 to 10% of the property's value.
Yeah. So it's a really good question, and definitely one that we consider every time we go to buy a lien. Because ultimately it comes down to the power of a tax lien. It's going to prevent the transfer of ownership, until it's taken care of. So, tax liens are amazing that way, but that even goes true when you're foreclosing on it. Your taxes are going to have to be current before they're going to transfer the ownership. Another really great question here, and I'm not even positive on the answer of this one here just yet, but it's a question from Mana out of, I'm interested in purchasing tax deeds from Wisconsin, but Tax Title Services doesn't cover Wisconsin. Are quiet title action the only choice for Wisconsin tax deeds? Do you recommend lawyers or sites for quiet title in Wisconsin? That is a really good question, and it is kind of a challenging one, because to be honest with you, how exactly counties go about foreclosing and what the requirements are after they foreclose on a property, create a tax deed. When they cloud a title, the requirements in order to to remove that cloud from the title are state law dependent, and so they can vary a little bit between every state. And we haven't bought property in Wisconsin.
Yeah, we've had some students that have, as far as the quiet title process, you're probably going to be better off going through hiring a local attorney. That's one thing about quiet title is, even in Wisconsin, we've had students that have been looking into there recently, but with that area, it's going to depend on the county. So, with every county, you're almost going to have to find an attorney within that area to be able to do that. Now, I'm not sure off the top of my head. There's another company called Clear to Sell that is the same type of thing as Tax Title Services. And I'm not sure if they have Wisconsin, so you could check that. If the property has enough value, then it's worth it going through the quiet title process, even if it's going to take you a little bit of time, because you're going to be able to go ahead and sell it for top dollar. If the property doesn't have as much value, then you would probably look at wholesaling it to a neighbor or someone like that.
Yeah, it's a really good question. In fact, I'd be interested to know why Tax Title Services doesn't offer it in Wisconsin. I'd be interested to know if it's something related to the way Wisconsin law works, or if what their reasoning is, because that might be, that might help us find the answer right there. But just about anywhere, I don't know of anywhere where it's not going to work the same here, where you're basically, in order to remove the cloud from the title, you're going to have to create a lawsuit. You're going to have to bring it up before the courts in order to get it cleared.
Yeah.
Through kind of a public notification system. And so another good question here is, opening bid includes all previous years of previous liens. No, so the one thing that's different about liens and deeds, deeds will be multiple years, but when you're dealing with liens are generally, a single year's worth of taxes. And that's why they're
talking about deeds.
Oh yeah, that could be. But yeah, generally liens just represent a single year's worth of taxes, and that's why there can be multiple liens against a property. But when it's a deed, they're just going to kind of add up all those together and make that the opening bid amount.
Yeah.
And so, okay. Yeah.
We got to go over property use. So next to value, one of the thing we've kind of already talked about it through each one of these is going to be what is the property used for?
Yeah. Can we put a home on there if it's a residential property, or does it have use as a residential property in some way?
Yeah, there could be, different types of building restrictions in an area. And so that may be where we make an additional call to the city planner and see, what type of property can be on there. Will they allow a mobile home? What's the size of the property? That way we've got a better idea of what the property use is and what we can sell it, what the intended, what we can sell it for is the intended use once we bought it.
Yeah, in fact, it may be worth calling into a county official to see if you can get somebody to talk to you about it. They may be able to provide additional information, about the property, that can help. But something we also look at before we buy is we start considering and thinking about the exit strategy that we would take with the property, so that we can try to estimate, because that's part of how we determine value.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to have a good idea of what we're going to do with the property before we even buy it. And in addition to that, we may have more than one exit strategy. So we may wholesale a property, but we also may include seller financing. The one thing that we'll probably determine before buying it, though, is, are we taking this property through quiet title, or are we just selling it as is deal, through just through a wholesale deal. So that's one thing that we're going to make sure that we've at least got a pretty good idea of, that the profitability is there, that it makes sense to go through quiet title so we can sell it for top dollar.
Yeah, for instance, one of the things that we'll do if we're looking at a property considering buying it, we're going to go and look for comps in the area. We're going to look for the cheapest property in the area that is at all related, to what this property is like. We're looking for kind of what the bottom of the market is in that area, and at least if we're going to wholesale it. We love using when it comes to wholesale pricing, it's pricing is one of our greatest tools that that we can use here, and it's also what ultimately sells.
Well, and that's one thing about land is people say, well, I want to earn residual income, and that's the reason I want to invest in structured property or in homes or something like that. Well, the truth of the matter is you can invest in land and still sell or finance it and get residual income that is coming in every single month. We have students on a weekly basis that are selling properties they bought through seller finance, and they're getting in monthly payments. And a lot of times, the down payment that they get from the person that's buying it, the seller financing it, is enough to cover the cost of the property.
Oh yeah, more than covers it.
Yeah,
in most
so
cases.
one of the first deals we did with one of our very first coaching student, who actually is now one of our top coaches, was a property. In fact, I've got a slide here in a minute, and I'll show it to you as we go through it. It was a commercial building lot that he picked up for around $1,700. He turned around and sold it with $2,000 down, which covered his payment, and then he got $350 a month until the property was paid.
Yeah, and not only that, but when you offer seller financing, it is a way to attract more buyers. Buyers come out of the woodwork when you can provide seller financing, to where really all you need is somebody that's interested in the property, and you can work out a deal to sell it to them. And if you haven't paid very much for the property, if you paid as little as 10% for it, or if it's essentially almost free, then you don't have to have that high of a price tag on it for it to be very profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we are selling it that way, we can sell it at such a discount that it doesn't take a huge amount of work to sell it. The price is what's selling it for us.
Yeah, that's totally true. And when it comes to targeting the right kinds of of land, there are lots of different reasons that we do it here, and reasons why land works out so well. One of you have a question about mineral rights, like oil and metal rights, and that's a fascinating question because it's an entirely additional aspect of tax sale investing, that you could dive into that we really don't have a lot of expertise on.
Well, really, when it comes to those type of rights, sometimes you'll see them like coal in Pennsylvania, or something like that, and it's going to be limited to really just a handful of states.
Yeah,
probably not even
true.
a full handful. There's going to be some states out there that will sell those mineral rights that way, if you don't pay those property taxes. And so it's something that we haven't, we've seen it occasionally here and there, but it's something we haven't actually done ourselves because we just don't know enough about it.
Yeah, it is a really good question. And then there's also a question about the quiet title process and what the benefit is. One thing that's really important for everybody to understand about tax deed properties is that when the county forecloses on the property, they take it through a judicial foreclosure through the courts. And, when they issue a new deed, when they turn that, when they create a new tax deed for the property, that deed is clouded in a way, okay? What we mean by that is counties issue property deeds. They're the ones responsible for recording it, at least in most places. And some of the deeds they issue have warranties, that are associated with them, that they're free and clear of any kind of encumbrance or lien. And that warranty is important when it comes to getting financing and stuff on the property. In fact, title insurance is one of those requirements during transactions that lenders are going to require, and title insurance requires that warranty or a warranty deed. And so the problem you run into if you don't have that, if you've got a tax deed instead of a warranty deed, is that you can't get normal financing because you can't get standard title insurance. That's where that tax title services company, or a company that can offer title insurance. But essentially, the quiet title action is a legal process that you go through to turn a clouded deed, like a tax deed, into a warranty deed. It's going through, before the courts basically to establish your unchallenged ownership of the property.
Yeah.
So
there's a bunch of different types of land that we can target. One of the first and one of the most plentiful is residential lots.
Yeah, residential lots are something we come across all the time in tax sales, and they're also fairly easy to define a use and value for.
Yeah, they need to be big enough to fit a home. They need to be zoned for residential use, and they obviously need to include a street access.
Yeah, and we can often find other properties around that have a value, that are attached to them, so they're easier to value.
Yeah, in fact, here are 3 different properties that were purchased by our coaching students, just to kind of give you an idea. You can see some of these properties were purchased for as little as $200.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're also, specifically, we look for properties. We always want to make sure they've got access and use, which we can see that in both cases here, we certainly can see that they have access, because they're located near other properties and by road.
Yeah, all 3 of them here you can see.
Yeah, and they're big enough to be used. They're similar to other surrounding lots.
Yeah, in fact, that one in the middle there, you can see where there's other trailers there within the area. So really what that is a double trailer lot, which automatically, gives it an appeal because there, some of these areas are out in, when we're looking over the counter properties, you may be buying them in more rural areas. And that's not always the case, but some of those times can be the easiest type of properties to sell. So something like that you could sell pretty easily.
Oh, by the way, one of the questions, in going through quiet title, do you need to be live in, present in front of the courts? That's one of the reasons why we recommend hiring a local attorney, real estate attorney, to take you through that process, because they're the ones that are going to present the trial, basically your case before the court. That's kind of what you're paying them to do, is to send out the notices and present your case. And so a local attorney can, it's going to be the best way to go.
Yeah, definitely. Somebody there within the court, because they're going to have to go down on to the court in your behalf.
Mobile home dealers.
Next is going to be commercial land. Commercial or industrial land, a lot of times it's going to have more value. There's going to be less of it. So whenever we see commercial property, industrial, anything like that, it's automatically going to pique our interest.
Yeah, I think it does have greater profit potential and greater value potential as well. You're going to be able to market it to different groups of people. Although we are going to be probably a little bit more cautious about looking for things like contamination or whatnot.
Yeah. Well, especially if there could have been something on the property before, that is something that we may look into. But this is an example of a very easy commercial piece of land to buy. This was the one that I was talking to you about earlier, picked up by our first coaching student. And he picked this up for around $1,800. I guess it was close. I said $1,700. $1,883 on an over-the-counter list, and ended up selling it for, actually sold for $12,500, not $12,000. And it was worth $22,000. So he actually gave the person he sold it to him for about 50% of value.
Yeah, which is actually a good point. One of the reasons why these properties are easy to sell is because you're able to offer people a good deal on the property, because essentially you're acting as a wholesaler, where you can sell it to them for something like cash transaction. Okay, so if you're going to sell the property as is with the tax deed, what that basically means is that somebody's not going to be able to get normal financing when they go to buy it. It'll need to be a cash transaction. So if you're going to sell it for $10,000, then somebody would need just to be able to come and pay $10,000 to you. But again, with properties like this, where you've paid $1,800 for it, you can sell it really to anybody you would want there. With something like $2,000 down or $2,500 down, and working out monthly payments, because the lot obviously has specific use. It was on a busy road. There were many things about this that were really attractive from an investment perspective, and so it wasn't easy to find. It wasn't hard to find a buyer for it.
Yeah, well, in fact, when he was initially offering it, he didn't offer it through seller financing. He had a good buyer that said, "Hey, I'm very interested in the property. I just don't have $12,500 right now. It can work good for my business. I can use it." And that's where he went ahead and worked out. We're getting a $2,000 down payment, which covered his cost into the property. So he's already got that covered. He can reinvest that money into more property. But then automatically getting that monthly income coming in of $350 a month that is going to essentially pay that property off.
Now, one of the ways that we find buyers is actually, so with any property that we go and look at, when we know that we've acquired it, once we've got the deed, one of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to send out, letters to the surrounding neighbors, letting them know that we've acquired the property. and that we'll offer it to them at a discounted rate. In fact, what we'll often is we may say, we're about to put this on the market for X amount, but if you're interested in buying it, then we're going to offer it to the neighbors here for this price. And it's an aggressive enough price that oftentimes you'll get people that are interested in it because if we can pick up a property for 10% of value, we might offer it wholesale to somebody for 30% or 40%. We don't have to make a ton of money on every deal because it's really about the speed of the transaction.
Yeah. And another type of land that we look for are large plots of land. Now, these can be anything from maybe an acre to up to 60, 80 acres. We've seen incredible pieces of property. In fact, one of the first tax sales that me and Shade attended together, we saw 160 acres that sold here in Utah, which we had never seen before that much property sell through a tax sale, not even close. So, with large plots of land, these are the type of properties that can be worth taking through quiet title. They can be used for developing. There's just so much opportunity, and if the larger the larger the piece of land, the more we like it in many cases.
Oh yeah, well, because it can have so many different potential uses, and yeah, like you mentioned, it can be, large properties can often be reevaluated and then divided up, basically rezoned, with different zoning classifications. This is what property developers do.
Yeah, in fact, if we look at the next slide here, this will give you kind of an example of a large plot of land. This was actually picked up by one of our coaching students, and when he bought it, he actually got it on an over-the-counter list. Didn't even got it up through an auction. And this is 27 acres, and you can see this is in New York. You can see the nice homes up there within the subdivision, and then there's this big 27-acre piece with a place to build a road to this. So when he first purchased this, the plan was to go through quiet title so that he could sell it with financing, as a regular warranty.
Well, it was valued at like
$200,000 assessed value. The market was probably quite a bit more than that. But once he had picked up the property, within 30 days, another investor contacted him and said, "Hey, I'll give you $80,000 for it." Now he called us up, and we kind of helped evaluate the deal with him. And for him to go ahead and hold on to it is probably going to take him about 6 months to go through quiet title. In addition with that, the property taxes on this property were $12,000 or $13,000 a year. So he was going to have to put in probably another $12,000 or $13,000 in property taxes before quiet title was finished and paying the property taxes.
Yeah, the guy that bought it from him had been looking at the same property for a while and just hadn't pulled the trigger on it yet, but he had already looked at it and had decided or made plans that he wanted this to be his personal lot for his home. And so what really made the most sense here was to rather than needing to sink a lot of additional time and money into the property, to take the easy money and to turn around it and flip it, which worked out really well for him. And this deal, this is a deal that he was able to have done within a couple weeks of when he bought it. Let's see here. I'm thinking here about when he bought it, when he got it approved. It took, it seemed like, about a month or so to get approved.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Yeah. Now, but in terms of what the normal time frame is, it all depends on how aggressively we price things. And sometimes we sell it just from the neighbor letters alone.
Yeah, now in addition to what we've just talked about, we're also going to look at any other type of land. So that could be farmland or hunting or camping or recreation, even vacation lands. In fact, we've even seen boat slips come up for tax sale.
Yeah, anything really that somebody has, that somebody would want to use.
Yeah,
you can come up, especially vacation-based stuff. It happens sometimes, timeshares we see sometimes. But specifically though, vacation lots or vacation cabins, things like that can come up.
Yeah, lots of recreational type properties as well, and over the counter, where maybe it's in a place like Minnesota or Wisconsin, like something like that, where it's more of there's a lot of lakes and mountains and things like that.
Yeah, property like that always has value. But these are all reasons why we love to focus on land. It's more common to find in these sales, but it's also a little bit easier. Just takes some of the harder work of due diligence out of the picture when you're trying to get started.
Yeah, well, we don't need to try to evaluate the condition. And the biggest thing with tax deeds is we can't go through the property. So if we're buying a structure, we can't send our inspector over to look at it. We the only thing we could do is stand on the street and look and see what the outside looks like from the street legally. And so, you know, we're with the structure property, we're either going to need to do that ourselves, or we're going to have to send somebody out there. So in evaluating the condition, we really need to know what we're doing with that before we go out there and do a deal. So if you're getting started, you know, that's the reason we recommend land, is because you're going to be a lot safer. You can evaluate what it is, and you're also going to be able to you know, land is, in our opinion, is more profitable. In fact, we can probably prove this through the numbers every single time. Now, you may not make as much money, but our students are selling land deals for anywhere between 1,000 to 3,000% returns.
Yeah, which is insane, you know, but the returns, it's happening consistently for us here. And it's been amazing to watch. You know, we record the success stories and share those, and I think it motivates other members to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, we have our membership program. If you haven't checked it out, go ahead and check us out on taxsalesupport.com. It's only $39 a month or $29 a month if you do a year up front.
We're also set up to take call-ins right now, I believe, too.
Yeah,
right?
here in a minute.
Yeah.
And so also with the money back guarantee, we have a 30-day money back guarantee. So there's really no risk to join. And with our membership, it's going to come with, you know, literally we have about 500 auction lists we post each month. We have our entire over-the-counter database. And then also we have weekly webinars, kind of like we are doing now, but they're going to be topic specific. So 1 week we're going to go over researching properties. The next week we're going to go over purchasing over-the-counter tax liens and how do you do that and what states to work with. And so every week is going to be unique, and it really is the best training available for as far as value is concerned.
Yeah, I think it's an easy thing to sign up for. We also have coming up here soon on February 7th, 8th, and 9th. We are going to be in Anaheim, California, and these 3-day events that we hold are an awesome chance to go deep into tax liens and deeds, and a lot of other stuff related to tax lien deed investing with real estate.
Yeah, exactly. It's a very small group. You'll spend 3 days with me, Shade, and some other trainers really going through explaining how tax sale investing work, getting you prepared. In fact, we've got a couple of success stories to show you what some of the last 3-day attendees did. Now, these people were not part of our coaching program, had just gotten started, and they were able to take the training that they learned, and within a week of the training, one of the students was able to buy this over-the-counter tax deed for $260. It was valued around $7,500, so he has around a $7,000 potential profit with this property. Now he's probably, going to wholesale the property, so he's going to try offering it to one of the neighbors, send out neighbor letters, letting them know that's available, and give it to them for a highly discounted cost. But even if he only sold it to the neighbor for $3,000, it's worth $7,500, but he only paid $260. So if he could turn around and sell it for $3,000, he's making a great return. And then the property on the right is an over-the-counter tax lien that's earning 14%. It's valued around $80,000, and the tax lien cost was around $1,200. So that $1,200 is protected by an $80,000 property, and they're either going to make 14% on their money, or they're going to acquire the property.
Yeah, which it was a lot of fun doing this work here with these students. The properties they're able to acquire.
Yeah, in addition to our 3-day, not everyone can attend our 3-day. In fact, the coaching program is really how we create our weekly success stories. So we only really have a small group of students that we work with. And with our coaching program, up to this point, we've had 100% success rate. So it's real important that we're working with the right type of investors, the right type of students.
Oh yeah. Now, in terms of the percentages, when we're talking about the 10%, that was generally a deed to cost value, or basically it was just a cost to value ratio. Yeah. More than anything on our total cost. you know, when we're looking to acquire the property outright. When we're looking to buy the liens, you know, generally they're going to be a lot smaller than that, and we're usually buying those just to try to earn the interest rate return.
Yeah.
You know, but the coaching program has really kind of been the genesis, I think, of all of the success, you know, that has come, and it has been amazing. You know, this is where we've worked with people that are starting off with, you know, X amount of dollars, and we're trying to just build their portfolio from you know, from there, and you know, going through the process of doing deals. You know, you'd be amazed how much you learn by going through the process of locating, you know, researching, buying a piece of property, and then turning around and offering it for sale and selling it. And when it comes to transferring deed, I noticed one of the questions we had earlier was, you know, can you hire escrow for transfer? No, in fact, when we do wholesale deals, we are the ones that transfer the deed. You know, we'll show you how we do that. You know, it's something that we handle, but you're going to learn, you know, to get into this level of tax deed investing, you'll understand every other type of real estate you could ever run into.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, here are just some different deals, you know, starting at $100 for a property up to around $10,000 for a 2-story home. You know, what's most important to us is what is the property valued? You know, if it's land, that's going to be pretty easy to find out. If there's structure, we're going to have to put some more work into it. But either way, we want to make sure that we protect ourselves. You know, like I mentioned, up to this point, we've been able to help 100% of our coaching students purchase property and either sell them or in the process of selling them, you know, with this program. So it's real important that we work with the right people, because, you know, working with the right people, really all they need to do is just follow what we teach them and they can have success.
Yeah.
We've done it with over 100 students now over the last 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, you know, it is a pretty small program, because obviously we're not working with that many people when you start to think about the numbers that way.
No.
But we do get openings, you know, that come up. So it's not part of the regular membership. The coaching is not, but you can sign up for the coaching, or at least you can get onto like a list for when openings come up. And then you can have the chance to go into the coaching program.
In fact, all of our coaching members come from our membership. So to even qualify for the coaching program, you need to be a member of Tax Sale Support.
You know, in terms of how long the coaching program takes, really, so we work with all of our coaching members kind of long-term, because all this stuff is kind of long-term in terms of doing some deals like this. I mean,
officially it's a 1-year program, but really it ends up being kind of a lifetime relationship, because like we said, you know, we know every single one of our coaching students' names. Now we have a couple of high-level personal coaches that work with them on that personal level, but we do the first session with them with their coach. We create the game plan, and so it's not a huge group. You know, it's really kind of something that we use to create these success stories and to help those people that really need that step-by-step approach.
You know, the membership doesn't include necessarily hotline. I mean, we've got somebody in here that answers the phone and can help with things and make sure that we keep people on. But most of the hotline or, you know, support on that end is mostly with coaching.
Yeah. So with the basic membership, you're going to have forum support. So you're able to ask any questions within the forum, and then also you can email in questions as well, and we'll answer those questions that way.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's just different levels. And also, see, something else that's a big part of it too is, you know, where you're at and what it is that you want to do. Because, you know, for instance, if a person, you know, I mean, if they've only got you know, X amount of money to work with, then we don't want them to spend all that on training. You know, so you know, there are different levels to it, I think, for different interests, or for people that want different degrees of you know, of help.
Yeah, and it, you know, really that's kind of where we go through that qualification process, because if you're not going to be the right fit, then we're going to point you in the right direction with the membership program.
It's a lot less than other coaching programs, we can tell you that.
Yeah, so as far as the California 3-day, we have a special offer just for tonight for those listeners that are on this call. If you're interested in attending our Anaheim workshop that we're doing 7th, 8th, and 9th of this next month, if you call in tonight, we're going to give you a number to call. We're going to let you bring a guest for free. So, for $9.97, you're going to go ahead and be able to bring a guest to the event. And in addition to that, we're going to give you 3 months access to the membership of Tax Sale Support.
Yeah, which that's great. That's like a $120 value by itself.
Yeah, and so, this 3 days is going to be an awesome event. Like we said, it's going to be a small group. We're going to have lunches catered. So if you're interested in attending that 3-day, go ahead and give us a call at this number, 1-800-425-8068. And they can go ahead and get you registered, get you that extra ticket and the 3-month membership, and then we'll go ahead and get you scheduled.
Another question is are you doing the 3-day training on the East Coast anytime in the future? And I think we will at some point in the future.
Yeah, I think we're looking at possibly doing it in the Maryland. We actually just did one last month in December in Florida. And so we'll probably look to do one in the DC, Maryland area next. At least that's what we're kind of looking at. But we're not a large company, so we're not like your average seminar company that's going from city to city doing their seminars. Really, our 3 days are mostly attended by our coaching students. So about 80%, 70% of the people at our 3 days are people that are already within coaching. And so it is a little bit more high level advanced. If you are new, we'll give you trainings to help get you up to speed to that point so that you can really affect your time there. So we're not kind of, your traditional.
Oh yeah, so the Anaheim event is February 7th, 8th, and 9th. During that time, we'll have the chance to cover a lot of content and information and show you exactly, where to find these properties and how we go about the process of doing that. It's not so much, the students aren't buying directly from our website in terms of like the properties aren't there. What we can teach them how to do here is how to locate these properties on their own ultimately. But in the beginning, we do have some different tools in place to help them find property faster.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyhow, yeah, there is, I think we're going to have a great time with that event, but really I love doing these, even just, these free webinars like we've done here tonight. We really appreciate everybody for joining us tonight.
Yeah, well, and there's no risk in checking out our membership program. We only have a couple of people a year that ask for that money back guarantee within the 30 days because most people love the training. But if you do, no problem. We're not going to, it's not a big enough deal to us because we really believe that this is the very best and the best value in education. In fact, we have students that on a monthly basis that will find our website and say, I spent $10,000 with another company and I'm getting more off of your website. You could spend literally hundreds of hours. We have hundreds and hundreds of hours worth of training.
Oh yeah, and by the way, yeah, we do a live webinar every week for all of the members of Tax Sale Support. We've also have another live webinar that we do just for the coaching students as well.
Yeah.
And so each of those are live, our live trainings that we do every week, kind of based on what people are looking for. And
yeah, nothing we do is pre-recorded and pretended to be live. We're always doing these live trainings. We've been doing it now since 2007. In fact, we've had a weekly webinar we've done now for 13 years, almost every week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And by the way, can we discuss the deal in that webinar? Ask a question. Sure. In fact, we've actually got a lot of tools. So we've got a tool that that you can use to submit properties that you're looking at and are considering buying, so that we can do an evaluation on it and at least help you see if there's any kind of an issue that there is with the property. And ultimately, kind of a property breakdown is what we do. Yeah. Oh yeah. So I think we're pretty much out of time here. But yeah, you're welcome to call in to the hotline number there if you'd like to find out more about the 3-day. And if we didn't answer your questions, or if you have more, you're welcome to email us directly. And we'll be sure to get back to you. You can contact us. It's shade@taxsalesupport.info and Stephen, PHEN, @taxsalesupport.info.
Yeah.
So, hey, thanks everybody. Have a great night.